me make better use of my time. Now I can relax and watch the game. Hello?
Hi, honey. How's everything going?
You don't want to know.
What?
It's the fourth quarter and my team's getting blown away.
U.S. West, making the most of your time.
Partly cloudy this evening with isolated showers.
August 13th, 1992.
Tonight, the horror devouring what was once Yugoslavia. And today, another death. This one in our family. Sam Donaldson still in the war zone to finish the report, searching out the ancient roots of a savage hatred, talking with a California millionaire who went back home to become prime minister amid killing, concentration camps, and that deadly phrase, ethnic cleansing. Tonight, we'll ask, will American weapons or troops be sent into battle? And if not, where will it end?
The Sarajevo of 1984. The Sarajevo of 1992. Only 8 years ago, this city was an international showcase, dazzling the world as host of the Winter Olympics. Now, the ice rink, where Torville and Dean swept to a gold medal, is burned down. The bobsled and luge run has been taken over by snipers. Sarajevo, painful testament to the brutality of war.
And finally, we know every day hundreds of people are killed or wounded there. But allow us to spend a few minutes telling you about just one of them, our colleague, our friend.
From ABC News, with anchors Diane and Sawyer in New York, Sam Donaldson in Belgrade, Chief Correspondent Chris Wallace, Judd Rose, Jay Schadler, Sylvia Chase, and John Quinones. This is Prime Time.
At JCPenney, we've changed clothes.
From head to toe.
Top to bottom.
Collar to cuff.
We've changed looks.
We've changed JCPenney. Our brands have a brand new look. And while we may have changed from our hats to our heels,
one thing remains the same.
Our great values.
And great values are what make us.
I'll get the cereal, honey. Morning! You'll love this cereal. Where'd you come from? A different time when grains were kept whole for the natural hearty taste. New great grains, toasted wheat, oats, and barley, kept whole, full of flavor. Pecans, dates, raisins. Enjoy it with the missus. Thanks.
Mmm, great. Where'd you get this?
Mind if I tell her?
What was great back then is great grains now. A great new cereal from Post.
Prime Time. From Belgrade, Sam Donaldson.
Good evening from Belgrade, Yugoslavia, and from the Balkans, where today we at ABC News suffered a great loss. Our producer, David Kaplan, was shot and killed by a sniper in Sarajevo, where he had gone to cover a story. Tonight, we want to tell you what happened to David, and to devote this program to the horror that is going on here in the Balkans. In response to that horror, the United Nations Security Council today voted to authorize military force, if necessary, to bring relief supplies to Bosnia, where people are being killed, and to demand access to detention camps in this region. Our day began when we flew from Belgrade to Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina, a city under siege, a city of great danger. This is a story about the death of David Kaplan, our senior Washington primetime producer. But you will see only one or two brief glimpses of him. There he is for an instant. Because you see, the top producers work behind the scenes. 5 of us from ABC, along with scores of other journalists, were going to Sarajevo with Milan Panic, the Prime Minister of Yugoslavia, aboard a... along with scores of other journalists, we're going to Sarajevo with Milan Panic, the Prime Minister of Yugoslavia, aboard a United Nations plane sent to pick him up. Everyone knew there was a risk involved. At one point, Panic came back to show me and ABC producer Ben Sherwood a UN report which said that snipers seemed to be specifically targeting journalists. When we arrived in Sarajevo, scores of additional journalists who were holed up in the city had come to the airport in their private cars and vans and had made the trip safely. What did Panich think about the danger? Why did you wear a black jacket?
I never did wear the black jacket.
Everybody, the UN is wearing black jackets.
That's very, very wise for them.
And not for you?
Very good. No, for me, I think it would be a sign of concern for my life. And I think the more important is that they get the feeling of confidence that I am not concerned.
Many people were not wearing a flak jacket, including David. There he is again for an instant. It was his choice. He felt it slowed him down. Panich took a brief look at the UN resupply effort. Planes have been getting in since last Sunday. And then, along with 7 others, including this correspondent, was put into a UN armored personnel carrier. We were driven some 2 kilometers into the city to UN headquarters. Now you pass a number of checkpoints. From the surrounding hills, Serbian gunners frequently lob mortar shells into the city. And snipers are numerous. But this morning, there had been no sniper fire on the airport road. So David and Ben Sherwood and one of Panich's top aides, David Caleb, talked over the situation and decided to risk it. They got into a private news van and started out. This is the van. A few hundred feet after leaving the airport, a single rifle shot rang out and pierced the back of the van. Producer Sherwood was sitting shoulder to shoulder with David.
We knew immediately that he had been shot, and we started yelling to the driver that he had been shot, and he immediately accelerated, and in about 2.5 minutes, we were here at the UN headquarters.
There was briefly pandemonium as UN stretcher bearers rushed David downstairs to an emergency field medical facility. A team of top-flight French doctors, always on duty, immediately went to work as we tried to understand what had happened.
Where was the wound, do you know? Right back here.
Oh, it was not up here in the chest?
No, down here. I did not see any wound in the chest, Sam. It was through the back of the vehicle.
We waited. The surgeon's report, when it came, was a sad one. The surgeon tells me later that David never had a chance. The bullet had passed through his stomach. It was a high-velocity rifle bullet. It did a great deal of damage there. And also, he had lost a great deal of blood. And he died at 1:15 in the afternoon in Sarajevo. Tonight, Prime Minister Panich had this to say about David.
It would be the greatest strategy if the life which this man gave is not going to be used for promoting peace. If we don't continue to work on peace, then this life would be lost.
We'll have more about David Kaplan later in this broadcast. But when we come back, we will do the story we came over here to do. The story of Milan Panic, the new Prime Minister of Yugoslavia.
Still to come, from Olympic jewel to decimated shell, the downfall of Sarajevo. Also, through a killer's eyes, the view from a sniper's perch. And next, the American businessman who became Prime Minister of Yugoslavia. He says he has a solution that can stop the killing. When Primetime continues.
Finally, a chance to get away. Moments like this call for Gold MasterCard.
We could find a romantic hotel.
In Paris? It has the added credit you've earned.
We could meet off to the beach.
Yeah, Maui. Plus, no card is accepted in more places at home and abroad.
Or we could take a trip we'll all remember.
Gold MasterCard, the best gold card to master the moment.
Introducing the new Ford Taurus and the button. The new Taurus now offers remote radio controls, express down power windows, and better night visibility. Because when it comes to convenience, we push all the right buttons.
Sandwich improvement, brought to you by Plastic Pickles.
When grilling out, it's hard to improve on a beautiful setting, such as this.
Smell that fresh air.
But you can improve on your burgers with crunchy, juicy Vlasic pickles.
Because Vlasic has the taste that guarantees a successful cookout.
Oh, right. Vlasic pickles, the sandwich improvement
you can do yourself.
Enter the Vlasic Sandwich Improvement Sweepstakes. You can win a trip to Hawaii, the Sandwich Island. See Sunday's paper for details.
Doctor.
Is it right for me?
Habitrol. It's a patch.
You know the patch. Habitrol. You know, Habitrol.
It's a patch. Habitrol.
Habitrol.
Habitrol Nicotine Transdermal System. Available by prescription only.
Thank you, Doctor.
Remember ice cream? That creamy snowflake captive on your tongue. So cold, so sweet. Did it make you think of fat, calories? Nah, just summer. County fairs, maybe clouds. Welcome back to innocence, to new lean cuisine. Rich, creamy taste without all the fat. So good, you'll forget you've grown up. Stouffer's Lean Cuisine. Taste you can love for life.
Tomorrow on Good Morning America, sex during pregnancy, when is it safe?
Then youngsters who can teach you a thing or two about saving the planet. And meet America's new Scrabble champ.
Plus a special birthday bash for our own Julia Child on Good Morning America tomorrow.
Welcome to White Horse Castle, where raising a family was the greatest adventure of all.
Not in the castle!
Sorry, Father.
Sorry, Father.
Tuesday, August 25th, it's Covington Cross.
Milan Panic is making waves in the Balkans. The Prime Minister of what's left of Yugoslavia is trying to stop the fighting in the region, get the United Nations to lift the sanctions here, and to organize a United States of the Balkans based on high-energy capitalism. Panic's ideas are new and different for this region, but there's a reason. As you will see, he's no ordinary Yugoslavian. He came to the Prime Ministership of Yugoslavia on July 14th. His name is Milan Panic. That's Serbian, which is to be expected. But there's a lot about this man that, for his new post, is totally unexpected. One day, you're a highly successful American businessman in California. The next day, you're Prime Minister of Yugoslavia. A lot of people think that's strange.
It is strange, but it is not. I think I have my long life in business, and this was something different to do and very important.
You're a U.S. citizen. Now, how can you be Prime Minister of another country?
You just ask for approval.
And did you get it?
And I received approval.
So Panic set out to run the government of Yugoslavia, which now consists of only 2 of the former 6 republics, Serbia and Montenegro. And many people say he is really only a front man for the powerful Serbian president, Slobodan Milosevic, the man accused of orchestrating all the recent atrocities that has so outraged the world. And what does Panic say?
I said many times, I'm going to work on democratization. I'm going to work on getting back country to respect international. And if he gets on my way, then I said, God help him.
Panic has made himself the Minister of Defense. He says the army will follow him in any showdown. And when word of concentration camp activity surfaced, he visited 3 of the camps in Serbia and read officials there the riot act.
And we're looking for the signs, not for prisoners, because they probably could have sent them out. And if I find the sign, I'll tell the world. And you'll be all in trouble.
Yes, Panic talks a great game. And he bounces around Belgrade, the city where he was born, doing things Yugoslavs aren't used to. A politician here shaking hands. But before you dismiss him as hopelessly out of his depth, you should know something about Panic's background. The man who led Yugoslavia after World War II is buried here on a Belgrade hillside. He died in 1980. His name was Josip Broz. He was also known as Tito. Marshal Tito, the legendary communist guerrilla chieftain who took to the mountains to fight the German invaders. In 1944, a new recruit joined his band, a 14-year-old boy named Panic. Walking those hills today, Panic recalls cheating death.
Many close calls. Once the bomb fell from the airplane, not even the bomb which were shooting at me, about 10 feet from me. 1 in 1,000 bombs don't explode, and that one didn't.
Did you think, well, I've got some sort of mission in life?
No, I thought I was lucky. I really did. I said, I don't believe it. And everybody didn't believe it.
But you were young. You were, what, cocky? You thought you'd live forever?
No, I was scared. I was always scared.
After the war, Tito, with his forceful personality, managed to forge a union of 6 republics and 2 provinces. Unlike neighboring Hungary and Czechoslovakia, which felt the iron fist of the Red Army, Tito managed to hold the Soviet Union at arm's length, declaring his country non-aligned as between East and West. But it was still a communist state, and Panic broke with his old guerrilla leader.
He became dictator. I left because of him.
Panic literally rode to freedom on a bicycle, defecting while on the Yugoslav cycling team at a contest in Holland. And in 1956, he arrived in the United States with $20 in his pocket and a dream of going into business.
You have to be young. You have to not know very much about business. Very dangerous to know too much.
Why? Because it would
scare you? You have to be
ambitious,
ambitious, of course. You have to be ambitious. You have to be, most of all, determined. So I started the business with $200 and...
What's it worth today?
I think billion something.
$1 billion something?
Yes.
The company is ICN Pharmaceuticals Incorporated, headquartered in Costa Mesa, California, with a subsidiary, ICN Galenica, headquartered naturally in Belgrade. Panich did it, but along the way, he may have cut some corners. In 1977, the Securities and Exchange Commission accused ICN of giving out misleading financial information. In 1979, stockholders forced Panich to repay $123,000 for his personal use of company property, including the corporate jet. And in recent years, Panich has been in a terrific fight with the Food and Drug Administration over his brand name antiviral drug, Virazol. Panich said it helped delay the onset of AIDS. The FDA said tests were inconclusive and forced ICN to settle the dispute by paying $600,000 to the federal government. Is Panich contrite about his claims for Virazol? On the contrary.
I absolutely believe that these drugs can prevent, or not prevent, but shorten or extend the life of people who have AIDS. I believe today, I have never changed my mind. I have been, as you know, prosecuted, but I have never signed anything that I agreed with them.
It's that damn the torpedoes full speed ahead attitude that Panich has brought here, and he'll need it. For instance, his Yugoslavia is not recognized by many countries, not by the United States, or Britain, or France, or Germany, not even by tiny Albania. When Panich visited its capital of Tirana this week, the Albanian Prime Minister told him there was no more Yugoslavia. He'd have to come up with another name. Panich let him have it.
Tell him we didn't ask him that. We just select the name Yugoslavia. If he likes it, that's good. But if he doesn't, but he really doesn't. If he doesn't like the name, it doesn't matter. Because everybody should have a right to select the name.
And to his fellow Serbs in Bosnia-Herzegovina, who have conquered much of the country and are even now shelling Sarajevo, why, even though that's another country, Panich says, well, listen to this.
They have to give the territories back, which they want.
Who's going to make them?
I will.
You will?
That's right.
This big talk produces skepticism among some political observers, like Dusan Relic of the opposition news magazine Vreme.
He does a lot of guesses, like when he thinks that he can order here anyone to do anything. At this very moment, the basic question is whether he's got true political power. And it looks to most of the people writing in magazines and newspapers that he lacks the power.
What do you think about the fact that he speaks English? I mean, here's your prime minister who speaks English.
His English doesn't seem to be very much better than his Serbo-Croat.
English or not, Panich scores high at the moment in public opinion polls. And it is clear that people here are hoping this California businessman can pull them out of their despair. As a matter of fact, Panich says it will take him only 100 days to bring peace to the Balkans.
100 days, the peace must be in Balkan.
100 days from now?
100 days, no. There is no 100 days left, 80 days.
80 days from now, you think there'll be peace here?
Yes.
And if there's not?
Then I have failed.
And you give up?
No, don't say that.
A lot of people think Panich won't succeed, that he doesn't know what he's doing. But then maybe it's like what he says about business. If you don't know enough to know you can't do it, you do it. In any event, Milan Panich says that when his time is up as Prime Minister of Yugoslavia, he intends to go home, to California.
Coming up, we'll trace why there is so much hatred and distrust among ethnic groups in the old Yugoslavia. Also, an unusual look at the fighting from inside a sniper's hideout. When Primetime continues after this from our ABC stations.
Something is happening to our Gulf War vets.
It just felt like I was dying.
The military says it's stress.
It is not stress.
Did they come home with a terrible secret?
I'm scared of not being able to lead a normal life.
Watch 2020 Friday.
I'm tunneling off to Wednesdays.
Hey, keep it down, butthead. I'm studying.
Look out! Home Improvement's on the move to Wednesday.
Good evening, everyone. Rod Fowler with this news brief. Mum's the word tonight from the FBI concerning an alleged kidnapping case. 22-year-old Julie Whitman claims she was kidnapped and taken to Kansas. She spent the day today with the FBI, planning on taking a polygraph test and making out a composite of the alleged kidnapper. But authorities aren't saying a whole lot about the case. Scott Smith will have an update at 10. Also tonight, emotional testimony from a Des Moines woman accused of killing her common-law husband. Now this.
Tonight at 10, the Athlete of the Week will be brought to you by your Central Iowa Chevrolet Geo dealers. Now featuring Geo Storm, the fun car for summer.
Rick Mitchell says we may be flirting with a record low tonight. Details at 10.
The new Light 104. Turn on the light. KEZT.
I listen all day at work. It's the one station everybody in the office can agree on.
KEZT. The music is always just light. Light 104.
It's the only station that plays soft, mellow music without all the talk. And none of that boring elevator music.
Partly cloudy overnight with isolated showers.
Prime time. From New York, Diane Sawyer.
Not long ago, the recent commander of UN forces in Sarajevo, General Louis McKenzie, and you're going to meet him in a few minutes. General McKenzie was asked to compare the hatred in Bosnia to what he saw during his tours in the Mideast and Nicaragua. He said of Bosnia, you can take the hatred from all those other places and multiply it times 10. He said, I've never seen anything close to it. Which made us wonder, how do you breed that kind of lust for the blood of your neighbors? How does it feed and grow over the centuries? Jay Schadler turns back the pages of history to help us find out.
This is the modern face of ancient hatreds. The sons and daughters of old rivalries, struggling to create a future from a fractured past.
The past is too much alive. I would even go as far as saying obsession with past.
Alexa Gilas was born in Belgrade and has written a book on the civil strife in his homeland.
It's the same historical event, which for one group is something heroic from their past, but for another it's their great defeat, right? And that, of course, makes it very difficult to keep the country united.
Until the 11th century, the territory we've known as Yugoslavia was dominated by one religion, Christianity. But in 1054, Christianity split into two great religious empires. The northern provinces of Croatia and Slovenia remained Catholic, but the southern provinces turned Greek Orthodox. 3 centuries later, a third religious wave, Muslims, swept in. At the Battle of Kosovo, invading Turks overran the Serbians in the south and ushered in 500 years of Muslim control of this once Christian land. Charles Yelovich is a professor of history at Indiana University.
Every time a Serb sees a minaret or sees a mosque, it's like waving a red flag in front of a bull. And the Serb, it reminds them of 500 years of Ottoman domination and Muslim domination in that part of the world. They want to get rid of it.
A clash of cultures had begun that still echoes in every corner of daily life here.
I've heard people, Serbian people, regard the Slavic Muslims as being lazy, not industrious individuals, and the fact that they are not clean, that is, they have too many children.
Among Muslims, Christians would be sort of dogs and pigs and so on. Statements like that are sometimes heard, yes.
If the rest of the world ever thought it could ignore the animosities burning here, it learned tragically that it could not. On June 28, 1914, a young Serbian assassinated Austrian Archduke Ferdinand and his wife. The event triggered World War I. A quarter of the Serbian population died. At the end of the war, a brief attempt was made to unify the territory by King Alexander, a Serbian dictator, but it only served to inflame ethnic hatred. On a trip to France in 1934, the Serbian king was assassinated by a Croatian terrorist.
Slashed down by saber strokes. Spraying bullets hit the crowd. Women fall wounded, hit by the random bullets. Alexander I of Yugoslavia lies dying here.
The country was on the verge of chaos when the Nazis invaded in 1941. Under the cover of World War II, Croatians and Serbians slaughtered each other. Their civil war took nearly 500,000 lives.
World War II, the sharpest animosities now really rise from World War II.
Yes, World War II is crucial. The memories of World War II. The group which suffered most were the Serbs. They lost around 1/6 of their population, to be exact, 209,000 people. Most of these people fell victim to a genocide, to large-scale massacres committed by Croatian fascists.
The fact of the matter is, during World War II, much of the killing took place brother against brother.
Yes, and if you want to be even harsher with Yugoslavs, you could say that now there is no foreign invasion and similar things are taking place.
At the end of World War II, the communist dictator Joseph Tito took control of Yugoslavia and held power for the next 35 years.
His magical powers were already very much receding, and the country was crisis-ridden.
According to Ivo Bonitz, a professor of Yugoslavian history at Yale, the old rivalries were to be born again.
He died leaving behind a profoundly troubled country that could not be managed by his puny successors, who were basically in the business of patching the cracks that were very much present.
So, when we look at what's going on now in the former Yugoslavia today, are there any might-have-beens? Could the proud heralds of the New World Order have prevented a return back to another century there? A lot of people do fault the Europeans for rushing to recognize all those splintered republics so quickly, Croatia, Slovenia, Bosnia-Herzegovina. And still others say that in the rush toward its future, Western Europe simply didn't pay enough attention to arranging political barricades among the rivals in Yugoslavia. It's a political corollary of the old military maxim that all failure can be summed up in 2 words: too late. Here's Sylvia Chase with a description of the disintegration.
The U.S. State Department says the breakup of Yugoslavia has displaced 1.7 million people so far, the highest refugee count since World War II. Before its disintegration, Yugoslavia was a nation of 27 million, where 7 major minorities and 17 minor ones lived restlessly within boundaries which no longer made ethnic sense, says political geographer H.J. DeBlay.
Boundaries were based on the existing minorities in their territories. But people move and they intermarry and they migrate. So the situation today is the cultural geography of Yugoslavia is at odds with the political geography of Yugoslavia.
Bosnia was an ethnic stew, with pockets of Muslims, here in yellow, Croats shown in green, and Serbs in red. In the extraordinary and bloody week since April, Bosnia's Muslim population has been all but obliterated. There were roughly 1.5 million Muslims, 40% of the population. Today, only 5% of Bosnia is under Muslim control. The largest enclave, here near the town of Bihać, which is encircled by armed Serbs. Where have the Muslims gone? Some to prisons. The others?
Many have become refugees. Hundreds of thousands of them have gone to Germany, to Hungary, and other European countries. You may remember the heartrending story of those babies that were taken out by bus that were actually shot at by the Serbs on their way out.
One indication of Serbian dominance. In just the past few days, well-armed bands of Bosnian Serbs have cleared Muslims and Croatians out of a 160-mile-long corridor, which now links the Serbian capital of Belgrade to Banja Luka, a Serbian enclave inside Bosnia. Another symbol of Serbian dominance, concentration camps. But the International Red Cross tells Primetime it isn't just the Serbs who are setting them up. Such camps have been organized by Muslims and Croats too. Yet the Red Cross has no estimate of total numbers of prisoners because camps are frequently moved and there's a lot of informal prisoner swapping going on. What is going on between rival minorities in this conflict? is a struggle which the experts think cannot be stopped at the Bosnian border.
Look at the map again. Waiting to be engulfed by what is happening now in Bosnia-Herzegovina are Kosovo next door, and Albania, and possibly even Macedonia and Greece. I've worried that this will destabilize the whole Eastern Mediterranean.
And so now already an estimated 10,000 people have been wounded or killed in this war, many of them killed by snipers who seem to care nothing about the targets, children, civilians. The Prime Minister, Milan Panic, claims that recently snipers have been offered $500 for killing a journalist. What you're about to see is an excerpt from a French documentary on snipers, narrated by John Quinones, a highly unusual glimpse of these anonymous assassins.
They lie in wait, stalking the next victim through the gaping windows of an abandoned high-rise. Bosnian Muslims who work 24-hour shifts shooting at human targets throughout the streets of Sarajevo.
I was born there.
His name is Predrag. He's 26 years old, a university student turned urban guerrilla.
4 months. 4 months I'm a soldier. I don't want to be a soldier.
But he joined the struggle because, he says, Serbian Christians are terrorizing his neighborhood.
Oh, we must go, 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 go!
They run because across the way, Serbian snipers are firing back.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, hurry, hurry!
This rare view from behind the snipers was videotaped by French cameraman Philippe Buffon,
If I say down, you must down. Okay.
who was first fired upon and then escorted to the snipers' quarters.
The place where we go now is dangerous.
Yes.
Very dangerous.
Some stay in vacant offices, while the others watch from windows. They scan the surrounding buildings looking for targets. Sometimes they scan for hours and hours.
This is the first time in my life that I must shoot the live people. He is an animal, but he is a man. And it's very, very terrible moment when you take a gun. When you must shoot.
Predrag claims he's shooting only at the enemy, Serbian snipers. Cameraman Buffon disagrees.
They might have been aiming at Serbian snipers, but they were also shooting at women and children, at anyone. They were shooting at small houses on one of the Sarajevo hills.
They may call themselves freedom fighters, but on the streets of Sarajevo, they're all assassins, whether Bosnian, Serbian, or Croatian. For Predrag, the reluctant Bosnian soldier, it's confusing.
It's very, very hard.
It may be hard, but minutes later, he was back at his perch where snipers shoot indiscriminately at the enemy, at civilians, at each other, and today, once again, at journalists. The cameraman who taped all this is not surprised.
The journalists bring back the truth, and the truth to all sides in this war is disturbing. They don't want the truth to come out.
We're going to be joined now from Sarajevo by Dan Damon, who's a correspondent reporting for ABC News there. He's lived in the area for 3 years. He's been in Sarajevo for more than 3 months recently. Dan, what do you know about the pattern of these snipers? What do you say to yourself each day when you go out in the streets?
This is for us a routine and everyday horror, I'm afraid. We here are so sorry that David met this horror and fell to it so soon in his visit here. We do, all of us, go out and we know that we are going to be fired at. It happens many times. Usually all sides claim they're firing at soldiers, but as your report said, there's no doubt they're firing at civilians. It's hard to identify who's firing in most parts of the city, but there are 2 places where it is clear. One is in the center of the city where anti-aircraft heavy machine guns are used to fire against one particular crossing point, and those can only be fired from a Serbian-held position. And I'm afraid the other place where it is easy to identify who is firing was where David died. There's no doubt that that checkpoint was firing directly at a car that was marked with TV to make it, if some way, protected. That protection didn't work.
We heard about the bounty placed on the head of journalists, the commission, if you will. What do they think they're going to achieve by targeting children, civilians?
I think only terror is their ambition. I have not heard of this $500 bounty for journalists. That's something new to all of us here. But certainly we knew that there was some money being paid for sniping of civilians. I was present when some snipers were arrested, and this whole terrible phenomenon is such a shock to us. I really couldn't believe that people were left behind in tower blocks just to snipe, to stay there as long as they could, and to take out as many civilians as they could. I was there when these men were arrested. They were rather glad that we were there, because I think being filmed by us meant that they didn't end up dead in a ditch somewhere. And they told us and showed us clearly how they were operating. They gave us access to their maps, which indicated their fields of fire. And they told us that there was a price. The price we were told was about 200 Deutschmarks, that's $150 for a child, and about $300 for an adult.
A price being paid by whom?
Yes, very hard to identify whom. They were members of a political party which is running the war on the Serbian side, but they, of course, to protect themselves, would not admit who was paying them. That's very hard information to get.
In light of our loss today, any new regulations for journalists? For instance, we noticed that the truck that David was riding in had TV on the side of it. Are there any new advisories going out?
The advice to us was always not to come. We are journalists covering a war, and of course our governments would rather that we weren't here. The United Nations sometimes, I think, would rather that we didn't come, because they, in the end, are responsible for getting us out if we're injured, or for taking care of us if we appeal to them. I think that the way things are going here is that there will be more dangers to journalists, particularly if the UN vote is seen by the parties here as meaning that there will be more force. There's a lot of expectation that the fighting will get worse over the next couple of days.
What about the long run, though? There is an expectation and a hope here that maybe the threat of force will cause some of the parties to back off in the long run. Is that unrealistic then?
I don't think it's unrealistic in the long run. I think the mid-run will be very painful. People here would really like to see F-16s flying over tomorrow morning and taking out artillery positions in the hills. Now, that's not going to happen. They would like weapons, high-tech weapons, to be given to one side to balance up against the other. That isn't going to happen either. I think that the way this slow and cautious approach doesn't please people here, nevertheless should please us as outsiders, because the alternative is that we get to a situation where the Balkans are aflame with power blocks, with the old alliances, with nations that are bigger and outside the Balkans trying to create their fields of influence. What we have here is an attempt to create international mechanisms for confidence building, for negotiation. Those will work very slowly. What this hardened convoy approach, giving military force to support the convoys, does mean is that there will be soldiers here and they will come into conflict with some groups. That will escalate, it will become more expensive, but the alternative is that we're going to see hundreds of thousands of people dying during this coming winter, because the cities here have very little shelter, very little water, no electricity often, and no way of keeping people alive. There will be a human tragedy here, but at least by stepping in this way, the United Nations is keeping some people alive.
We'll be talking about this more with General Mackenzie in just a few minutes, but our thanks to you, Dan Damon. Take care of yourself. And we'll be back in a moment.
When we come back, the tragic transformation of Sarajevo. Just 8 years ago, the city glittered as host of the Winter Olympics. Now it's been turned into a killing field. Also, the question of sending American troops to the area. We'll talk to the general who led the United Nations Peace Force in Sarajevo for 5 months. When Primetime continues.
Ah, the sounds of summer.
is 2 crazy breads and this jug with Kool-Aid for only $8.98. It's Little Caesars.
Picnic. When everything's chaos all week, I need to do something good for my head. So come Saturday, it's VO5 Hot Oil. Talk about a different conditioner. You put it on before you shampoo. The box even says it's patented. All I know is it works. There's something to that heat-activating business, because it leaves my hair shiny, silky, even strong. Hey, a little control sure feels good.
Alberto VO5 Hot Oil and hairdressing, styling, or shampoo. Because real life needs real control.
It begins at dawn. They've come for you. And they want what you have. It's your bed, your Serta Perfect Sleeper. But it's the most comfortable spot in the house. The Serta surface and support only Serta builds in makes it that way. So if it gets a little late for breakfast, there's always brunch. Is it any wonder people are saying, I want my Serta?
If I even look at a sink full of dishes, my hands go crazy. But now there's new Palmolive Sensitive Skin for dishes. It's free of dyes and the harshest irritants. It's even dermatologist tested. New Palmolive Sensitive Skin. It's dishwashing made less irritating.
Now you can have a firmer fanny with the Fanny Sizer from Firmco. Just shake, shake, shake your way to a shape.
Still going. Nothing outlasts the Energizer battery. It keeps going and going.
She's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Those smooth lines, the flawless curves, and man, the way she moves. She's so hot, she makes my blood boil. All I can think about is getting her alone on a deserted road somewhere and letting her show me what she's got. If I could just get my father to keep his hands off her.
Who are you talking to? Robert Urich stars in Crossroads. The journey begins this fall.
Perhaps nothing sums up the devastation of this war more than what has happened to Sarajevo. A city that only 8 years ago dazzled the world as host to the Winter Olympics now lies in utter ruin. Judd Rose recalls those glittering images of 1984 that have now become casualties of this conflict.
Where once they danced on ice, now only the flames dance. Where once they raced for glory, now they run for their lives. Only 8 years gone, the memories of Sarajevo's winter of gold have been nearly obliterated by the summer of lead. Maybe you remember this, the British pair Torvill and Dean ice dancing their way to a gold medal at Zetra Arena in downtown Sarajevo. Today, Zetra is a gutted, smoldering ruin. So is the Olympic Village. The TV tower built to transmit the games to the world is gone. The bobsled run is now a fire base for Serbian gunners. If you watched the 1984 Winter Games on TV, this may shock you. But if you were there, it'll break your heart.
Hello, I'm Jim McKay reporting from Sarajevo, where we'll be from now until the closing ceremonies.
Jim McKay hosted ABC's coverage of the Sarajevo Olympics. On the day the games began, he described the host city as a happy, unified place.
On the surface, as I say, it seemed like a place where people had learned to live alongside each other, whether they liked each other or not. And when you heard the muezzin in the tower with his cry a number of times a day, sometimes coinciding with the church bells ringing at the same time, you had the Muslims and the Christians, as I said, side by side, literally and figuratively, and it seemed like it was working. And now we know that it wasn't really, that underneath were these terrible, centuries-old bitternesses just waiting to get to the surface, as they've been doing in recent months.
Entering the 1984 Winter Olympics, Yugoslavia had never won a Winter Olympic medal, and this was a goal for Yugoslavia to win a medal as the host country. Jure Franko, a Slovenian, wins a giant slalom silver medal. And in the downtown square where they held the medal ceremonies, there were 25,000 people waving flags, chanting, Yugoslavia, Yugoslavia. And I got a chill up my spine. It was a wonderful moment. No one cared where he was from.
As a researcher for ABC Sports at the '84 Winter Games, Dragan Mihalovic has happy memories of Sarajevo. But watching the city being ravaged by the Serbs is doubly painful for him. His parents are Serbian, and he has family in Belgrade.
The Yugoslav army in Belgrade and throughout Serbia was going around recruiting people, knocking on doors in the middle of the night, trying to recruit people of age. My cousins in Belgrade got a knock in the middle of the night. Fortunately, this one cousin had fled to the hills. Unfortunately, the hills where he fled is now, the site of some of the worst fighting.
Irony piles on irony. In 1984, 10,000 soldiers of the Yugoslav army were sent to Sarajevo to help out. Some even shoveled snow on the ski slopes after a big blizzard. Today, that same army uses those same slopes as a staging area for its relentless assaults on the Olympic city. U.S. alpine skier Phil Mayer won a gold medal on those slopes.
It was just really, really pretty. And now to think those mountains no longer are pristine, I don't know, they just seem to be so pure when we were there. And now they're not.
It was in Sarajevo that the West first noticed East Germany's dazzling Katarina Witt. The sports complex where she skated, where they played Olympic hockey, is now rubble. The Olympic Committee had its headquarters in this hotel. What's left of it houses reporters here to cover the bloodbath. And the open green spaces that surrounded the Olympic Village, they're now graveyards. Every day that passes, another Olympic treasure ground to dust. And yet, in the middle of all this, the new Republic of Bosnia-Herzegovina sent 10 athletes to the Summer Games in Barcelona this year. And Bosnian leaders have proposed that the Winter Games of 2002 return to Sarajevo. What they hope by then will be a healed and peaceful Sarajevo. Here, where we once celebrated what's best in us, we see once again the savagery that seems to lurk just beneath the surface. The Sarajevo Olympics ended 8 years ago, but it wasn't until this year that the flame went out.
At this moment, there are at least 24 wars raging around the world, from Sarajevo to Somalia to Myanmar and to Peru. But the one in Europe has put presidential policy in the spotlight. Chief Correspondent Chris Wallace takes a look at what the presidential candidates are saying about the choices and what, if anything, the U.S. can really do.
For George Bush, the dilemma over what to do in Bosnia is not only a military and diplomatic puzzle, but also a high-stakes political problem, testing his supposed strength in foreign policy. In an interview today with David Brinkley for Sunday's This Week broadcast, the president continued to express great caution about committing U.S. troops.
And I am not going to do that unless I know what the mission is, how we're going to achieve successfully that mission, and how we're going to get our sons and daughters out of harm's way.
The Democratic nominee Bill Clinton has used the Bosnian crisis to set his own foreign policy tone, attacking the president for doing too little, too late.
And we may have to use military force. I would begin with air power against the Serbs to try to restore the basic conditions of humanity.
At first, the White House called Clinton reckless, but had to drop that as the president also backed the use of force. Political analyst Norman Ornstein.
What's been the impact of Governor Clinton attacking the president from the right, of being more of a hawk?
The public image, to whatever degree it exists, is a president sitting back while bloodshed goes on and not moving to do anything. And Bill Clinton has been very effective at promoting the notion that terrible things are happening in the U.S., the president are sitting idling by.
But experts say there are no easy solutions, that the factions and terrain of the Balkans remind them not of Desert Storm, but Lebanon and Vietnam. Option 1, airstrikes to stop the shelling of Sarajevo and let in UN supplies. Military analyst Anthony Cordesman says the Serbs would just hide their guns.
Very rapidly, they'll learn to disperse them, fire a few rounds, and move. Then we would require constant on-call air power, and that's almost impossible to provide.
Option 2, open a land route to send supplies from Split on the Adriatic to Sarajevo. Experts say ground forces would be under constant fire.
Now, to secure that can take a force of anywhere between 20,000 and 200,000 men, depending on how intense the opposition is.
Another idea, arm the Bosnians so they could stand up to the Serbs. Experts agree with the White House. That would intensify the conflict, not end it. Then there's the suggestion to bomb military targets inside Serbia, to try to get them to call off the attacks in Bosnia.
attacking military targets just might work. They might back down, but they can just as easily step up the fighting and take more civilians hostage and kill them.
And there's the final option, deploying Western ground forces to try to pacify the area. Portisman says there's no way to do that on a small scale.
You are talking basically not only humanitarian relief, but occupying the country and virtually becoming its government in the process.
Which means a deployment of hundreds of thousands of troops for years on end?
This has been going on for hundreds of years. 100,000 or 200,000 troops doesn't necessarily end anything.
As we mentioned this afternoon, the UN Security Council authorized the use of force in the former Yugoslavia only as a last resort to take in humanitarian supplies. Right now, there are about 15,000 United Nations forces already in the area. And until recently, they were under the command of General Louis Mackenzie. General Mackenzie returned from Sarajevo last week after finishing his tour as UN commander there, and he joins us now from Ottawa, Canada. And we thank you so much for joining us at this hour, General Mackenzie.
My pleasure.
If you could tell us what's going to happen now. Does the UN turn to the Security Council countries and say, put some troops on standby, put some materiel on standby?
Well, I'm not aware of the exact wording of the resolution, but as I understand it, it's the necessary force, and that's a very wide spectrum. And I would imagine that we have had some success in getting convoys, for example, from Split to Sarajevo without any escort whatsoever. So in a non-confrontational manner, I would imagine they would try to negotiate passage, but I would hasten to add that Sarajevo is just one spot in a very troubled area, and there's lots of food and medicine required, even more so throughout Bosnia-Herzegovina.
If they have to call in troops, if it does become necessary, what percentage do you think ought to be American, U.S., and what percentage of the munitions in order to make it effective?
Well, that's a problem for the Security Council or whichever international agency is going to take this on, be it NATO or WEU or CSCE or in fact the United Nations. But that would be negotiations between the Security Council and the contributing nations. And it's not a simple problem because everyone is trying to avoid committing ground troops because that's the dirty part of the battle.
Well, you've been one of those sending up the cautionary flares about the number of troops that would be needed to protect a corridor. Do you think in the end the countries are going to come through? They're going to sign on?
Well, that's up to the countries. And sure, I was a cautionary voice, but the decision has now been made. And I'm sure we'd all chip in to try and do the job properly. It's not going to be easy putting a force together, but I doubt if it will be impossible. But I would imagine that some pressure will be brought to bear throughout the international community, particularly in Europe, because this is part of their backyard in order to provide the troops that are necessary. And I would like to think that negotiation and liaison on the ground with the parties could result in convoys continuing to get through with very, very little force being required, hopefully none.
General Mackenzie, again, we thank you for coming in to give us your reaction to the UN vote today. We're very grateful. Thank you again. I want to turn back to Sam and ask you, Sam, did the Prime Minister say anything to you about his view, whether the UN vote would trigger more violence or dampen it?
Well, Diane, he believes the UN vote may not be helpful, but of course he is a special pleader. He is under UN sanctions at the moment. He wants those sanctions lifted. He tries to make the point that he's trying to rein in the Serbs in Bosnia. He says that the Serbs in Serbia, which of course is in Yugoslavia, are no longer aiding the Serbs in Bosnia, but a lot of people are suspicious about that. The sanctions here are hurting, but there's plenty of food. Inflation is going off, but this is not Iraq, and the sanctions will probably go on a long time before Yugoslavia will really be brought to its knees.
Thank you, Sam. And when we come back, on behalf of us all, Sam will have some final thoughts about this day.
Right now, every gallon of paint is on sale at Sears. Every interior, every exterior. Save 10 to 33% on Weather Beater, Easy Living, Dutch Boy, Olympic Stain, and more. But hurry, sale ends Saturday at Sears.
Calcium is important for healthy teeth. It's in your mouth naturally, and it's in tubes of Colgate's Great Regular Flavor. It has no nutritional value, but calcium helps Colgate's fluoride penetrate teeth. Colgate's Great Regular Flavor for strong, healthy teeth.
I feel energetic and ready to face the day.
Zane Hunter discovers breakfast with grape nuts for a week.
I love grape nuts. It kept me going the whole morning.
Grape nuts, the fat-free natural energy source.
It just had a real crunchy, nutty, different kind of flavor that stayed fresh. Old cereal's out, grape nuts is in.
Breakfast with post-grape nut cereal helps keep you going strong all morning long.
You just try it for a week, and this will become your new cereal.
Of all the important safety features we put in the new Camry, some may seem a bit extravagant.
Stronger body construction, child protector rear door locks, rear seat headrests, adjustable front seatbelt anchors, standard driver side airbag, available anti-lock brakes.
But when it came to safety, we didn't ask what it costs. We asked what it could save. The all-new 1992 Toyota Camry. We just couldn't leave well enough alone.
So you just got a cash advance, did you? Too bad you used an ordinary credit card. Because you could be carrying some very heavy interest charges. Why not carry the Discover card? Just pay your full monthly balance and a small transaction fee, and we'll forget the interest. Which means our money comes with no strings attached. It pays to Discover.
Next, the FBI will give us some answers about the alleged kidnapping of a Milo woman.
Some emotional testimony today from a Des Moines woman accused of killing her common-law husband.
And the first American journalist is killed while covering the fighting in Bosnia.
Channel 5 News is next.
I cannot wait for our convention to roll up my sleeves and go after them.
Can Bush and Quayle pull it together? Watch the Republican convention with Jennings, Brinkley, and the people of ABC News. Live coverage begins Monday.
Well, good night for Diane, Sawyer in New York, and for all of us in the Balkans. We want to leave you with some final thoughts about our colleague, David Kaplan. If some of the thoughts seem a bit disjointed, well, we recorded some of them earlier today in Sarajevo. We'll never know who shot David Kaplan. Or why, because the bullet was an indiscriminate one shot at a vehicle, obviously to kill, but they couldn't see David. They didn't know who was inside the vehicle. One shot wasn't the fuselage. One sniper did this. One sniper did this to David, who was my friend, who's been my producer. For 20 years I've worked with him. For the last dozen years, so closely. He was my White House producer. He was the senior producer for Primetime Live in Washington. David had been everywhere, it seemed. He came to work for ABC News in 1972, a 25-year-old who wanted to be a top producer. He worked in the Watergate story and then went on to do politics, which became his real news love. David joined me in 1981 as the White House producer, and he went round the world with Ronald Reagan many times. David was the best field producer I've ever worked with. He had a touch for pictures. That's what television is all about. Could he recall where to find a certain scene, say the Reagans together in a particular pose? Absolutely. He always knew where to find things. And he was terrific at crashing. That is, when the story's late and there's no time to spare, he would get us on the air. He went with me to the Persian Gulf for the 6 weeks of the 1991 war. And in Kuwait City, he was, as always, a strong editorial voice about what needed to be said. David was fun to be with. At the White House, at ABC, people liked him. Liked both of them, David and Sally Kaplan. He was the top producer he always wanted to be. I'm going to miss him terribly. And I hope that his dying here in Sarajevo does something. I'm not certain what, but I hope it does something that could help stop this killing.
This is ABC.
Burger King has 3 delicious international chicken sandwiches for you. Fixed fresh, served hot, just the way you like them. The Italian way, white meat chicken with mozzarella cheese covered in marinara sauce. The French way, chicken with Swiss cheese, ham, and mayonnaise. The American way, chicken, American cheese, lettuce, tomato, and mayonnaise. The international chicken sandwich at Burger King.
Your way, right away, at Burger King now.
You know, when you treat folks right, do good work and stand behind it,
word gets around. I appreciate it, ma'am. That's why I always tell my customers to buy Quick Trip gasoline. You see, Quick Trip is known for treating folks right. They stand behind everything they sell. And that includes an unconditional guarantee on every gallon of gasoline you buy. Unconditional guarantee. With Quick Trip around, why take a chance anywhere else?
In Missouri, the greatest of outdoors awaits you. A place where you can explore, unwind, and get caught up in the beauty. Come enjoy a few days in the refreshing outdoors of Missouri. For your free travel kit, call 1-800-877-1234.
The cashback and low-interest offer from your Central Iowa Chevy Geo dealer has been stretched to September 2nd. Pick up low 6.9 or 7.5% Brenton Bank financing, plus cashback on every new Chevy or Geo. Chevy Cavalier, get a low rate plus $750 cash back. Geo Prism, get a low rate and $1,500 cash back. S10 Blazer, get 6.9 or 7.5% plus $2,000 cash back. With your Central Iowa Chevy Geo dealer in Brenton Bank, you will save money, but hurry, this sale must end September 2nd.
You're watching Channel 5, and this is the Channel 5 News Late Report.
Good evening. Mom is the word tonight as far as the FBI is concerned. They say tomorrow they'll release information about the alleged kidnapping of a Milo woman.
22-year-old Julie Whitman was reported missing about a week ago. Earlier this week, she called home saying she was kidnapped and taken to Wichita, Kansas.
For the latest on the story, let's go to Scott Smith in our Metro newsroom. Scott, is there any late word from the FBI?
Well, Gail and Rod, right now we still don't know much. Earlier today, FBI agents spent most of the day questioning 22-year-old Julie Whitman. Late this afternoon, they escorted her from their offices. Both the FBI and Whitman refused to talk to the media.
Just away from us, there was no comment.
FBI agents had no comment about the near 5 hours they spent questioning 22-year-old Julie Whitman. Whitman was meeting with the FBI reportedly to take a lie detector test about her alleged abduction. Whitman had been missing from her Milo home for a week. Tuesday, she called home and told authorities she had been kidnapped at her Milo home, then forced to ride in her car to Wichita, Kansas. Tuesday night, she returned safely back to Iowa. Whitman agreed to meet with the FBI and take the lie detector test to prove her story was true. Late this afternoon, FBI agents escorted her from their offices, both refusing to talk with the media. And although the FBI isn't saying much, this is the description Julie Whitman gave authorities of her alleged kidnapper. He's a white male in his 30s with brown hair and a large stomach. And again, there are no arrests in this case tonight. FBI agents told me earlier this afternoon they're going to have more information available to the media tomorrow afternoon. We, of course, will be following their investigation. We'll have more as details become available. Rod, Gil?
Okay, Scott, thank you.
Emotional testimony today from a woman who says she killed her common-law husband in self-defense. Darlene Daniels is accused of stabbing to death Edward Wright last May. Today, she told Polk County jurors that Wright frequently beat her with his fists. Daniels says Wright hit her when she was pregnant, forced her into prostitution, and raped her. Daniels maintained her composure as she told a lot of stories of abuse, but when the testimony touched on the subject of her children, she couldn't hold back the tears anymore.
When he would take your food stamps, what did you have to feed your kids with? Did your kids ever go without food because of that?
Yes, they did.
Daniels says she grabbed a knife to scare Wright, and when he came after her, she swung it. Prosecutors, however, say evidence shows Wright was deliberately stabbed. They add that Daniels waited overnight before she called authorities, and when she finally did, she lied to police. Testimony continues tomorrow. Daniels could face life in prison if she's convicted.
A well-known Des Moines attorney has pleaded guilty to drunk driving charges. Roxanne Conlon will serve 40 hours of community service and undergo substance abuse evaluation. Conlon was picked up by police in her driveway earlier this summer. The DOT will now decide if she'll lose her license for any length of time. Des Moines police want to hear from you if you know where this man is. He's David Vestal, who was serving a 10-year prison sentence for burglary. Last month, he walked away from work detail in Taylor County. Just recently, he was spotted in the Des Moines area. If you've seen him, you're urged to call police at 283-4811.
A tragic accident this morning in Franklin County killed a grandmother and her 2 grandchildren. Authorities say it happened at an intersection near Latimer. They say a car driven by 2 teenagers ran into the side of the car driven by 60-year-old Marion Trolley of Hampton. She and her grandkids, ages 7 and 9, were killed. Authorities aren't saying how the accident happened, but they do say no charges have been filed. Imagine going to work tomorrow knowing you're being laid off. Worse yet, you don't have another job lined up. That's the reality for hundreds of workers at the Jimmy Dean plant in Osceola. Alan Earlis spent the day there and tells us how the town is coping.
Finding new jobs. Workers here have known for months their days were numbered. The decision to close this plant was made public in March. Excess plant capacity was the reason given. Workers we talked with say most people still haven't found new jobs.
There's a lot of people that's going to go to school and initial help. A few relocate, but not many. It's going to be a drastic cut in wages for us.
This employee told us he can't find a job in Osceola.
Nope, no, not at all.
Are there jobs to be found?
Not very many. There won't be any jobs like this one anyway.
Jimmy Dean was Osceola's top employer. There's little doubt its closing will hurt. But new jobs have been created. Business leaders believe individuals will be hurt more than the community itself.
It's got to be tough on some families, but we're trying our darndest to ease the blow.
It's been 5 months since Jimmy Dean announced it would be closing this plant. In that time, 150 new jobs have been created. It lessens the impact on the city of Osceola, but it's little consolation for those people who will be jobless at the end of this week. In Osceola, Alan Earlis, Channel 5 News.
Thanks, Alan. Turning to weather now, I think most folks would agree we've had some chilly nights lately, but tonight we may break the record low, and Rick has the latest for us from the Weather Center. Rick?
Well, Rod, the cool air mass that has settled into the region earlier this week is about to reach its peak intensity tonight. We could see some record low temperatures in central Iowa by tomorrow morning. Overnight lows will easily dip into the 40s across northern Iowa, right around 50 in the south. Now, the record low temperature for Des Moines for tomorrow morning is 51, and I'd say we have a good chance of at least tying and perhaps even breaking it. The forecast for tonight, partly cloudy. We still will have some isolated showers around for the next few hours. A low temperature of 50 with a northeast wind of 5 miles per hour. It looks like a gorgeous vibecast, and I'll have the rest of it for you a little bit later.
Okay, thanks, Rick.
Today, the United Nations Security Council overwhelmingly approved the use of force in Bosnia. The vote on the 15-member council was 12-0, with China, India, and Zimbabwe abstaining. The resolution okays military intervention, if necessary, to ensure the delivery of humanitarian aid. A second resolution demanding access to detention camps was adopted unanimously. And as you may have seen earlier on Primetime Live, the Serbian unrest has now claimed the life of an American journalist. ABC News producer David Kaplan was on assignment with Sam Donaldson. The journalists were in a convoy of cars headed from the Sarajevo airport to UN headquarters. Producer Ben Sherwood was sitting next to Kaplan as the bullet hit.
We were sitting in a row of 3, and there was a loud explosion in the vehicle, and David Kaplan jerked forward and then sat back and clutched his chest and then slumped down into the car.
And you realized he'd been shot?
We knew immediately that he'd been shot.
The leader of Serb fighters in Bosnia is denying that his people had anything to do with the shooting. At least 30 journalists have died in the Yugoslav upheaval.
President Bush has made James Baker his right-hand man. The president announced today Baker will quit as Secretary of State to move to the White House and become Chief of Staff. He'll also oversee the Bush re-election campaign. The White House is shrugging off criticism that the personnel change is putting politics over international affairs.
He will help me build on what we've started by developing an integrated second-term program of domestic, economic, and foreign policies. This is a pivotal point in America's journey. And in the world of today, these 3 topics have become one issue.
James Baker is expected to take over his new duties at the White House August 23rd. Topping world headlines tonight, vandalism may have caused an Amtrak train to derail, injuring 74 people.
The Amtrak Colonial jumped the track last night near Newport News, Virginia. Workers are still trying to clean up the mess. Apparently, the engineer slammed on the brakes when he saw a switch thrown the wrong way. That caused the train to derail. Investigators say they found bolt cutters near the switch and believe it was tampered with. 4 pro-lifers reported to jail this morning in Houston. The Operation Rescue members were found in contempt of court for violating a judge's order on how far to stay away from women's clinics. The judge ordered the 4 to stay in jail up to 6 months with a $500 fine.
Economists say we're not spending a whole lot these days at the marketplace. The Labor Department says consumer prices went up 0.1% last month. Some experts say the small rise in inflation means the economy has not regained strength.
Coming up, the new school year is just right around the corner.
And so is the Des Moines School Board election.
Educators say there are some tough choices ahead for Des Moines Public Schools. I'm Amelia Hamilton. I'll tell you about 2 school board candidates who want to help make those decisions.
Walmart presents a brand new film from Polaroid. For clear, sharp pictures from your 35mm camera, new Polaroid high-definition color print film. You'll find it at Walmart in value packs in 3 popular film speeds, each at a low Walmart price, with 12 exposures free. New Polaroid high-definition film. A choice of speeds, clear, sharp pictures, and a dozen extra shots. Only at Walmart. Always the low price. Always.
Hey, America, did you know that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of America's top 10 selling vehicles are Fords? And now your Ford dealer's saying thanks with the Ford Factory Authorized Clearance. Option package discounts and cash back let you save on every new Ford. Save on Taurus, Explorer, Ranger, Escort, and F-Series pickups. It's the Factory Authorized Clearance with an all-American lineup. Only at your Ford dealer.
Same burger, same bun, same price, no fun.
Hey, you don't have to eat this stuff. You can go to Arby's for something different. Like a big regular roast beef sandwich and curly fries, only $1.99 for a limited time. Let's get a better look at all that lean, freshly sliced roast beef. Excellent. Now those irresistible curly fries. Get them both right now for just $1.99. Now, I'm gonna need extra ketchup.
Arby's is different.
Hey, different is good.
As you get your kids ready to go back to school, you'll probably also want to give some thought to the people who help run your school district.
In a few weeks, we'll go to the ballot box to elect school board members. Education reporter Amelia Hamilton says there are only a few school board candidates, but all will face a number of challenges in the upcoming school year.
Keep your promise! From the State House to the schoolhouse, we have been hearing the debate on education. But come Tuesday, September 8th, voters can go to the polls and have some impact through the school board elections. Incumbent Jonathan Wilson is seeking a 4th term on the board. Wilson is an attorney. He believes the needs of education are growing while funding is on the decrease. As a parent with a daughter at Lincoln High School, he is troubled by the lack of technology in Des Moines classrooms. Socialist Party candidate Shirley Pena is new to the Des Moines area and is a laborer. She has no children but is worried about the future of public schools. Here is where these 2 candidates stand on some of the issues.
If we have more money to spend on staff, we can have more staff. If we have more staff, we have fewer kids per teacher.
What we need to do is fight to bring the kind of funding that's necessary into the school system so we can keep the class sizes down.
And if you put your youngster in a basically homogeneous school, lily white and preparing them for the land of Nod that doesn't exist out there, well, you have denied them a real quality education.
What was the contribution of blacks in this country? What was the contribution of Native Americans? What was the oppression that Mexican Americans faced in this country? These are all an important part of education that young people don't receive.
I don't support the proposal that was advanced for any number of reasons. I believe that there is a great deal of expense involved that has not been accounted for.
I'm not for a mandatory year-round school attendance by young people. I believe that young people should be free to work if they so choose.
Educators believe public schools have some critical choices to make, and now, more than any other time, parental input is needed. School board candidates say the funds for education are dwindling, and it's hard to find a consensus on how the money should be spent. In my next report, we'll talk to 2 more candidates who want to help set the pace for the future. Amelia Hamilton, Channel 5 News.
Thanks, Amelia. A record low, frosty breath the whole day?
It's possible. It is possible out there. We'll have your weather right after this.
It's a dream come true as the Home Builders Association of Greater Des Moines and the Des Moines Register present Home Show Expo 92. Tour 18 spectacular new homes at Huntington Ridge and Clyde.
GMC trucks are already loaded with the security of anti-lock brakes and strong galvanized steel. And now we've loaded them up even more. Every option you want, from air conditioning to power windows and stereo cassette. So now that they're loaded, how do we unload them? With a limited time cash back offer. Now you can get $300 cash back on a new GMC Sierra.
Free checking with no hidden charges?
When pigs fly.
Norwest Bank introduces free checking the way you want it. There's no minimum balance and no monthly service charge.
How do you do that?
And there's no limit on the number of checks you can write.
Well, wonders never cease.
And the offer is good as long as your account is at your Iowa Norwest Bank.
Truth is stranger than fiction.
Talk about bringing home the bacon.
It's just one of our unbelievable products, only from your Norwest Bank.
At Montgomery Ward, we're doing whatever it takes, so we're having a clearance sale at Electric Avenue and Home Ideas. At Electric Avenue, save with closeout prices on popular items like camcorders and air conditioners. Save with closeout prices on appliances like washers.